Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast. Thank you guys very much for listening. We appreciate all the support that we've been getting over the past little bit. Every like and follow and all that good stuff makes a big difference and helps us out. So if you haven't already, please check us out. So today we were going to...
You said please check us out, but you'll be talking to someone who already is checking us out. So
I mean, following and liking and all that kind of thing.
Okay, sorry, but if they're already listening to you, they're already checking you out. So how does that work?
Would you like to do the intros from now on?
No, I was just being pedantic. But carry on with the intro.
They could be checking us out on Facebook because they're not looking at us on Facebook when we have a Facebook page.
But then they won't be listening to them. Say that.
Just like stuff. It will help. Trust me. Just press the button and something good will happen, I think.
If you are listening to us, click on the like button or Momo's going to come get you. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. That's a more direct way of saying it, but yeah. So today we have, for our beginning opening segment, we have something a little bit different today. Ryan has a story that he would like to share with the class. So without further ado, take it away.
Are you guys not going to go through your news? Have you got no news this week? Is it just my news this week?
Just your news.
Your news will take long enough to take up the whole segment, I think. If we run out of time, we can go around and I'll say something.
I don't think we're going to run out of time because we're already 20 minutes late because of the inventive power in Nelson,
Classic.
So, yeah. But anyway, I had some interesting visitors to the Fishroom last week. So unannounced, interesting visitors. I always like visitors, people who come see my fish. So
except this kind.
These people weren't very friendly or very nice to my fish. They didn't even say they liked them. or let me show them, So it was Thursday morning and I'd just done my business mentor meeting with my business mentor, obviously. And I was just chilling about 8:30 and the dogs just started going ape shit at the door. I went out there and there was like 8 cops wandering into the property, and all not friendly looking cops, like big cops with vests on and tasers and looking like they wanted to mess shit up. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. They must be looking for someone like, this is Helensville after all. There's probably like
someone on the run
and stuff. Yeah, someone on the run on my property. That's all good. So I went to the door and like 4 or 5 cops came up to the door and the rest just disappeared around my property, and one was jumping over the fence and they were going around the place, and I was like, what's going on here? Okay, cool. So I opened the door and then 4 of them were in the house, and one of them was shoving a warrant on my face and saying, we've got a warrant to search this property. Is there anyone else on the property? What's going on? And I was like, what's going on here? I didn't even know what was going on. I was just freaking out trying to figure out what's going on. There was already 4 cops in the house, opening doors, looking and shit, wandering around the house, having a nosy, and one guy shoving a warrant in my face. And I'm like, what is going on here? So is there anyone else in the house? Is there anyone else on the property? And I was like, what's going on? I didn't even have anything. What are you doing? We've got a warrant. We've got a warrant. Sit in the lounge. And I was like, oh, well, the kids are asleep because it was the Auckland secondary school's strike day, so the kids were asleep. And so I had to go and wake the kids up, and a cop came in with me while I was waking up the teenage girls as well, which was a bit weird. And then then we all got detained in the lounge, and the girls are sitting there half asleep going, what's going on? And then I had to wake the girls and say, hey, girls, the police are here, and I don't know what they're doing. Can you come into the lounge? So it was, you can imagine the looks I got from them. Luckily, they didn't tell me to go away politely, like teenagers would normally, when you try and wake them up. So we all got in the lounge, and they read us our rights about remaining silent, and everything we say will be used against us in the court of law. And I was still going, what is going on? I don't even know what's going on right now. And I was trying to go, what? We don't have anything. And then he told us it was about, they had a warrant to search the property for drugs. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, this is the kids. You guys don't have anything? They're like, no. So, okay. So, so you don't have anything. You're not going to find anything. So, we have to follow this. da 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 da. And then went to grab my phone. He told me I can't have my phone. I put my phone down. He said, you might be here for a little while, so you can have a drink of water if you want to, make yourself comfortable. And it's like, what? And meanwhile, there's one main police officer, the sergeant, I guess, was standing in the lounge, and here comes, we've entered the first property, and no resistance so far. Things looking good. Going to proceed to second property after this, and sorry about that. And I was like, oh my god. And then in the kitchen, there's this guy that I call Meatex because he's just sitting there with his hand on his taser, not saying anything. And I think if I said something to him, he'd be like, Meatex. He looked like that sort of guy that they bring to these things just to mess people up if they're bad or whatever, and the other guys are just cruising around the house, and they're looking at everything. And my dogs are getting lots of pets and jumping on everyone, but that's about the only emotion these cops are showing. And then after about a couple of minutes of this, I realized, I was like, it's the fish room. Like it has to be the fish room. The only other thing I was thinking was we've got a granny flat at the back, and we've got a flatmate out there, and he sometimes uses a little bit of medicinal green medicine. And I thought, what has he got into something? During the process of this, he'd been woken up and dragged up the front here, and he's got lung conditions, and he was sitting at the front of the house hyperventilating and looking like he's going to have a heart attack. So we brought him inside and calmed him down, and it's just, what, So when I realized it was a fish room, I said, you guys want to, do you want to come see my fish, My computer just blanked. I said, do you want to come see my fish? And so I stood up, and the cops, whoa, sit down. I was like, okay. And he's like, just give us the keys to every shed you have on this property. And then I went to grab my keys, and they were all, watching me. I was like, oh my god. And so I got my keys, and then I give them the keys. I said, that one's on the container. A lot of keys on here. What are they all for? Oh my god. I said, here's the key to the container. Go have a look. And then a couple of minutes later, they come in. Oh yeah, this is all fine. There's nothing to see here. And I was like, okay then. And then the one that had come in the search, he's like, what's happened here is we've had an officer go down the driveway down the side there to attend a matter, and he's seen this container with lights sort of shining out the door, and he's smelt your flatmate here having some medicinal green, and he's put two and two together, and we've ended up with a search warrant and what's happened today. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then one of them says, at least we know where to come to buy some fish, but I don't know if you're going to be that friendly if we come back. And so yeah, and then they all left, and it was actually quite confronting, like having all these cops just in your face, and the house is full of them, and they're everywhere, and you didn't do anything wrong. So if you're a slightly dodgy person or a slightly reactive person, it would have been quite hard. But I was just like, what is going on here? Racking my brains. Have I got anything that's dodgy? Are they going to find anything? I also thought, is this a meth raid? Like, is my fish room getting raided for something? Like, if I don't think I've got any dodgy fish, but Cam isn't giving me any dodgy plants or anything, Yeah. So yeah, it was quite an interesting experience, and I was quite thrown by it for a couple of hours, just trying to figure out what was going on. And they didn't really apologize. They just kind of said, oh yeah, this is just the way it is. We had some credible information and we had to act on it. I was like, oh, okay. But I say, you could have just knocked on the door and I would have shown you my fish. I don't care, And about 2 seconds after that, my partner showed up because I couldn't call her, but one of the neighbors had seen her, seen the whole thing go down, and rung her at work. So she shot home, wondering what was going on. And luckily, she's not too pissed about my stupid fish. So it's all good.
Sounds good.
And that's the second time I've had a fish room searched by the police.
Oh, nice. First time for the same reason?
The first one was a lot nicer. They were in the neighborhood and they just saw it and just knocked on the door like, what's in the container? And I was like, I'll show you. And they're like, oh, okay, sweet ass. These are cool. And just left. So They were a lot nicer about it. My friend was actually there. He showed them, wandered around the fish room and played with the fish with them. So, yeah.
Oh, nice. Sounds like good fun.
So,
Well,
yeah,
at least
it
it all ended well in the end, I suppose.
It did, yeah. Unfortunately, the whole of Helensville probably thinks we're now drug dealers because everyone knows everything in this town. So,
Well, they probably thought that before anyway, to be honest. So,
Purely because you
no
live in
change.
Helensville and a container.
because I've got
Exactly.
a shipping container sitting in the back of my house, humming away with light shining out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyone that does sort of trade fish from their backyard, the amount of people that kind of walk in and out and that kind of stuff. Like any neighbours could think something dodgy is going on. Like my in-laws have got a fish breeder that lives across the road from them, and he constantly reckons something dodgy is going on because the amount of people going in and out. But no, it's just a dude that breeds fish and clearly selling fish to people that love
Just
fish.
crazy fish people.
Yeah, crazy fish people.
There's like
crazy people.
There's like it's not obviously common for that kind of thing to happen, but like there's plenty of stories of like people getting raided for like by the police, and it's like, oh no, it's just fish. Like especially like reef keepers with like the purple and red lights and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like you hear a lot of stories of that kind of thing happening, and then it's like, it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
sure
thought
the power use probably gets flagged by the power company as well on particularly reef with all the pumps and the lights and stuff like that. So that's probably another wee red flag that gets shone up.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have thought with me being like a famous podcaster in Helensville and fish, they would have known. Like everyone should know that who I am. Do you not know who I am?
Yeah,
I was actually thinking though. I was thinking when I was telling my missus about this, I was thinking this, like they could just Google your name and there's plenty of videos of what's inside that container. Like it's not like it's super secretive with that. Like it would take maybe 10 minutes of research to figure out what's going on.
I don't know what information they hold on you, but I imagine it's fairly easy to get. They could have Googled me, figured out this guy's done 18 years in the military. He's like a fish geek. His missus is a primary school teacher. I don't think they're drug dealers. I don't think that they're drug dealers. Maybe we just go have a chat to them and see what's going on. But I guess they've got, I don't know, they've probably got procedures and stuff, and they can't actually legally search anything without a search warrant, and then they've got to gather evidence in certain ways for it to be usable in court and all this sort of stuff. But it was pretty over the top for a tropical fish geek with a whole bunch of fish. I was even turning on the lights of the tanks inside and going, look, these are the fish I've got. Look, must have a lot of tanks out there to have a container full. I said, yeah, about 60.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then,
well, sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was. It's a good time now. I can laugh about it because it's done. But at the time, it was a bit confronting and a bit freaky.
Did you did you have
checks out.
propose to your missus to get her wound down, or was she okay the whole time?
No, she's all good.
She's all good.
She's
no,
angry.
no
she's angry at she's angry at the police, so that's all right. And she keeps hassling me about this tank that she wants for her classroom from Cam. So maybe we'll do that as a fish peace offering.
Oh yeah, I was actually meant to message you about that, so we will sort that later. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe make some content about it.
Maybe I need like a Sierra filter for that, so I can try one.
That actually does
discussion.
If you are, we haven't decided, but if you do take, it's already running on a Sierra filter, so you can just take that one if you want. Works out perfectly.
There you go. Then I get to try one, and then I can actually contribute to today's discussion better. I'll do an updated one because I have to only go on the information I've got now. Yep.
So yeah, we're talking about filtration today, obviously. So that's like very basically, if you're not aware, like in an aquarium, there's these bacteria that like process the fish waste from like the toxic, like gonna kill everything stage to the non-toxic stage.
And those all live in the stage.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's kind of the general sort of practice, but there's heaps of different methods of getting there. So I don't know, Cam, if you want to go through like maybe the common sort of types of them for at least as far as New Zealand goes.
Sorry,
the different ones that's available.
Are we talking about like the filter itself, or we're not going into media and shit at this stage, are we? We're just going to say bio.
No, we are.
Oh, we're going to go into media as well. Okay, all right.
Yeah, man.
We'll see how.
Well,
that
I
goes.
mean, 45 minutes is a long time, so we'll see where we end up.
Yeah,
But
okay.
everything's on the table.
So the main filtration styles here in New Zealand would be like your air-driven stuff, which would be a sponge filter, or every now and then you'll find an under gravel filter or a box filter, but generally speaking, your sponges, which is pretty basic in design, hooked up to an air pump, draws the water in via the air, and just purifies the water that way. Then you'd have sort of the hang-on backs and the internal filters, both power-driven. One sits inside the tank via the engine, the motor, whatever you want to call it, draws the water in, cleans it via the media, sends it back out, and the hang-on back is essentially the same thing, but it just hangs on the side of the aquarium, draws it up, filters it out, and cleans it back in. Following that, you'd have canister filters, which are a far larger version of an internal filter. A couple of pipes sit on the inside of the tank, draws water out of it into like a big plastic chamber type thing, cleans it all up, shoots it back out. And then there's the sumps, which are generally used on bigger aquariums, which I think most people, or a lot of people, seem to get a little bit confused about how they work and what they are. But I think that people get confused on that because you don't generally walk into a shop and see a glass sump sitting on the shelf ready to buy. So they're essentially another aquarium underneath your bigger aquarium. Water comes in, runs through a big filtration, your media, your sponges, all that kind of stuff, and gets pumped back out. And generally speaking, your heaters and stuff like that sit inside your sump as well, so it gives a far more cleaner look to your display aquarium. And yeah, that's the general gist of what's about. And this is something that I've forgotten.
The only other one that I would consider worth mentioning would be like the overhead ones, which is like what you're going to find in like a Aqua One Eco Style or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is like
Totally.
it's basically like a
trickle filter, I think they called overhead
Yeah.
trickle filter.
Yeah. It's basically like an internal filter that sits across the top and
essentially
sucks,
a sump
basically.
almost. It's essentially like an overhead sump is more than anything. But yeah, it's a weird
kind of. Yeah.
You can buy them and you can build them.
Yeah. But no, I mean I suppose we'll start in the same order that Cam started them in. So like the air filters are sort of the main benefits of those is like you can run. So that's what I use in the shop. I can run. I don't even know how many tanks, like maybe like 30 or 40, all off of one pump. It's a big pump, admittedly, big air pump, but one pump. So it saves makes everything more energy efficient. And also it's like cheap, simple, easy maintenance. It's not going to suck in the fry or like any little fish or anything like that. So yeah, I think they're good. The only sort of downside to them is they are very ugly, usually, and not very, but pretty noisy. Obviously you can get like a real nice air pump to run them, but they're still pretty ugly and noisy. So yeah.
I think they're a little bit limited on mechanical filtration for them. Like biologically, they're phenomenal, but I think they can be a bit limited when it comes to mechanically drawing in a lot of wastes. Personally,
I agree.
Disagree.
Sorry, I just had
I
a bit
disagree.
of indigestion.
Disagree?
I disagree. Yeah, but anyway,
Okay.
I'll wait till it's my turn and Cam can talk through what he thinks about them all, and then
Yeah, I think with the mechanical, for me personally, I also find this struggle. And like you have to clean them out more to keep them sort of functioning on the same level, which is fine, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. But yeah, I mean, they definitely can do. The only other sort of flaw I find with them is a lot of them is way too fine, the actual sponge. So it just clogs up real fast, basically, and then you have to, clean it out more and all that, which is not ideal. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely a good option. I always say they're a good option to run like in conjunction with something else for more the home aquarius, because then you get, if you need to use a, quarantine or like a hospital, or like you want to set up a new tank, you can just pluck it out and then put it in the new one and then you're good to go. So yeah, that's about what I reckon. So what do you have anything? What I know you use a lot of them, Ryan. So obviously you like them.
Well, yes, I like them. Yes, and if you're doing a big fish room, there's pretty much no other option apart from sponge filters or box filters. And it's relatively hard to find a decent air-powered box filter. I mean, not hard, but sponge filters are easy to find. I find they're pretty good on mechanical, but I do agree with Cam's caveat there that they do need to be cleaned out more often. Sometimes if I get a murky, manky tank and I chuck an extra sponge filter in there, then it's clear the next day, like crystal clear. But there is often a lot of crap floating around on the bottom and stuff that it's not picking up, but a power filter would. But they do process all the ammonia and all the waste, and they're cheap. So you can just buy heaps of them, get a big air pump, and just power them in your tanks. I run them on big tanks. What do you call it? A deviation or a slight modification of the sponge filter is a Hamburg Madden filter too, which I've found really good in my fish room. Like I've got 4 of them in 4 tanks. And
they are great.
There is no crap in those tanks, and they are stable as, and they're crystal clear pretty much always for the Hamburg Madden. So that's basically where you essentially make a sponge filter. So you stick a bit of sponge right down one side of your tank, usually on one of the short sides, or you can do a corner if you want to, and you make a couple of little air-powered uplifts. You can Google them; they're pretty easy to make, and then you basically essentially use them squirting over the top of the sponge to suck the water through the sponge, and they're just really good. Like my tanks that I've got them in, there's a couple of them I've never cleaned the filter on in like 2 years, and they're still crystal clear. The filter's manky as. The only problem with them is cleaning them out as a mission, because as soon as you pull them out, the tanks are like brown. It's just so bad, because you can't. There's no way to pull them out cleanly. I mean, I think I might try and stuff one in a bag next time I try and take it out, so that it doesn't just squirt everywhere, and then putting it back in without squashing any fish behind it can be a bit tricky too. So, but they're a really good option. Again,
yeah, I do look quite like them as well. They're again simple but real effective.
And they're just old school, just basic stuff. Buy some foam off AliExpress and make some Hamburg Madden filters. That's easy. But most of the stuff that I do is mainly designed around being functional, not pretty, or being, getting all the crap out of the tank so it looks nice. It's more about processing the waste. That's the bare minimum.
Keeping the fish healthy.
Keeping the fish alive, healthy, happy, and the bigger tanks I do run externals on, just to process the amount of waste that's in them. But apart from that, it's just all air filters.
The other, I think, benefit with the air filters as well is, like, particularly for like an application like a fish room, is obviously, as we said, it's going to be sucking in all the gunk and the crap. But then when you've got fry around, it gives the fry like good surface for grazing on, because obviously there's all sorts of little bits and pieces of edible stuff in there. So particularly between feedings, I find it gives them a lot of surface area to kind of pick at. Particularly for stuff like, your little tangyukins or your booners, or like,
any fry will benefit from it, even if you're breeding a pistos and stuff, they'd love it, and they don't suck and fry, but catfish do eat them eventually. So,
that's where I found. I'll have to post a picture of it, but I had a sponge filter in my apple snail tank in the shop, and after about 6 months, like, it was one of those ones that sticks on the glass with the double heads. And after about 6 months, there was like maybe a $2 coin size piece of foam on one of them, and then the other one was completely bare. So for that situation, I probably wouldn't do a sponge filter. I changed it to a box filter, which is basically like a plastic box with all the stuff on the inside. Obviously, that's good for anything that's going to munch on the sponge filter, because they can't. So yeah, that's the only downside to them, is if you have fish that'll munch on them, your tank will have more mess than if it didn't even have a filter. So Yeah, but no, the box filters are a good idea for that kind of thing. Or
if
even you
you've
could
got
do
a-
under gravel if you're old.
If you've got a tank that's running and you've got an air stone in it, and you can hide some sort of filter in your tank, like hiding a box filter or a sponge filter is a real good option.
Yeah.
And also then if you ever get a hospital tank, you can just whip it out, providing you've got sufficient filtration in your other tank still going to maintain your bioload. But you can just whip that filter out, chuck it in a hospital tank, and you're way to go. You don't have to keep the hospital tank running and try and cycle it and all that sort of stuff.
I always thought it was a great idea if you are running air into your main aquarium with an air stone, why not put a sponge filter on it for that exact reason? Unless, of course, you like the way the bubbles come out off the bar or something like that. But yeah, if you're already putting air in there and you can, like I said, hide a sponge filter, why not just add to it?
I always thought the best option for that is what you can do is you can get like a little crocodile that shoots bubbles out of its mouth. So why not do that if you're already running air? But if you're not that way inclined, then probably a sponge filter is fine.
That's a no for me. As you guys know, I'm an aquascaping purist, and we don't use ornaments in aquascapes.
Well, what you can do then is you can get this little you can get a little boat that blows bubbles out the chimney. So like,
what about a scuba diver? Is a scuba diver acceptable in an aquascape?
Of course,
it could be a diver.
Yeah, man, you're replicating nature.
It's natural.
It's just you're putting yourself in there. Yeah, man.
And there could be pink gravel and SpongeBob SquarePants. Have you not seen?
And you got to do one of those tanks where they throw like an empty Coke bottle or something in there, so to really replicate nature.
Yeah.
But that's a bit sad.
Anyway, we're not talking about aquascaping right now.
We'll save that for a different podcast.
That'll be a 5-minute discussion on the back of some other podcast.
Yep. All right. So my next question is one that I have opinions on. So this is probably more directed at Cam than you, Ryan, but what the hell's going on with hang-on backs in New Zealand? If I want to hang them back, why is it impossible for me to find one unless I stumble across a second-hand one that's 10 years old? What the hell's going on?
You're asking the wrong person because I have no idea. I agree with you. I think they've just gone out of fashion and
it's bracing. I think it's bracing on tanks.
Yeah.
I agree. It's probably bracing.
I think it's bracing on tanks. We didn't used to get as many Euro brace tanks as we get now, and now they're pretty much all Euro braced. So,
what does that mean? If I'm sitting at home and I have no idea what you're talking about, what is that?
Euro bracing's that little thin strip that sits around the top of your tank and runs lengthways, basically.
Of glass.
Of glass, yeah. It's thin strip of glass that runs, maybe 40, 50 mils wide, running along the whole length of your tank, and then goes through. Your center brace is still there, and your edge braces are still there, and that's to stop the deflection of the glass, basically, through its length. But they didn't used to be that common. So you used to be able to have hang on the backs, but now pretty much every tank has one now. So, well, most made ones do. Smaller ones might not, but then you're probably not too stressed about a hang on the back on like a little 2-footer, And a lot of tanks also these days have hoods and stuff,
Yeah.
And they're a lot fancier than they used to be. A little glass box sitting on your kitchen bench.
It is a bit of a shame because I think a hang on back is like my personal I don't know, order of coolness is like number 1 sump, then hang on back would be number 2. So like they're awesome. I really like them. They're like a lot easier to use, I find, than like an internal or like canister or something, because they don't make as much mess when you're trying to deal with them, and like it's simple but effective, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's just hard to find them.
The amount of flow they create is awesome. Like a good one just flows so much flow and surface disruption, which is great for your aquarium. Like you can't. It's just a
get some more oxygen in there.
Yeah, I think.
And
it's
it
awesome.
like aesthetically even like it's quite like a nice hang on back is actually quite nice to look at. Like the water just pouring back in, just aesthetically, it's quite good.
And you can hide it. You can hide it in the back of a tank.
Yeah, and so yeah.
Unfortunately, the ones that we can get hold of now are really hard to modify as well. Like the ones like
crap.
the AquaClear ones used to be really easy if you got them to modify them in the way you wanted to have them. Whereas like the new ones or the ones that are more commonly available now, which are the Aqua One ones, are far harder to modify to set up for permanent use and permanent success. Which is a real
I'm going to say something that will probably get my Aqua One rep annoyed, but do not buy the Aqua One ones. They are terrible. If you if you don't use the cartridges, so like I hate cartridges, don't use them. But on those filters, if you don't use the cartridges, then the water just flows over the top of the media. It doesn't actually go through. Like you can't really modify it to work more efficiently. So they suck. And then the other problem is
set up for you to continue to buy the much like the hang over the top filters. They're set up for you to continue to buy and not to change them, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's where like the Aquaclears, the Fluval Aquaclears and the Seacam Titles are like hands down the best, but neither of those brands are importing them anymore. So your only real option is like if you buy them online or something from overseas, I suppose.
Aquiel have hang-on backs in their range. They look like, I've pulled one apart. They look like they could be modified in the way that you wanted. They were quite a slick-looking unit. I haven't plugged one in, played with one, anything like that yet, but I have pulled one out of the box and had a wee look that way. So that's one option that's about, but very limited.
Yeah,
it's probably so harder to get hold of.
It's probably the only option, really. Of any, like I can't speak to the quality. I've not tried one, but like definitely don't buy Aqua One, and then the only other option is Aqua L, unless you get one of those random, imported brands that is not branded and all that.
Yeah, and who knows? They might be good, they might be bad. We don't really know. I do have a couple of Aquaclears under the house. I'll dig out for you, Cam, if they're any good to you. A couple of the big bastards, the 110s.
Oh, damn.
So
yeah, I could find a guy who could make use of them.
Because I've got bracing on all my tanks, so they're no good to me. So you, if I can find them, you can have them.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you very much.
I was really annoyed when both the Seachem ones and the Aquaclears were stopped being brought into the country. That frustrated me because there's no other real options.
They're probably just not
Seachem
selling.
is definitely the best option. I'd say, like quality wise. Seachem is, because I really like how it has the pump in the water. Then if there's a power cut or something, it just starts back up like nothing happened. Whereas the Aquaclears sometimes do, sometimes don't. But
there is the Marina ones. There is the Marina one. They are.
I'm not
junk.
a fan.
No, I've used them on my better rack. I hate them. They are noisy. They are just rubbish. If I had another option, I wouldn't be using them.
I find also the impellers die very easily. Like you look at it funny, and then the thing's broken. So yeah, I've got one. I don't know. Well, don't do that, but still, I have one of the S15s. I think. I don't even know where I got it. I think I bought a tank and it was on it, and I use it for. I just have a bunch of pothos growing out of it because it's in my Mbuna tank, and I'll eat the roots otherwise. But even then, like supposedly, it shouldn't even be looked at, but it sucks. I keep having to. It keeps getting clogged. The impeller keeps getting broken. Yeah. Like if I could, if it fit, I would do one of those Fluval hang-on back breeder boxes like the air-powered ones.
Like I use. Yeah.
It's just in the space, it doesn't fit. There's not enough room, so it has to be one of those slim ones. But like, if I possibly could use an air-driven one,
they have so much potential because of the size and the way they're designed. They're just junk.
Yeah, it's if you're wanting to filter a tank, you'll be more efficient to just do a big water change every day than just stuff around with this stupid filter every time.
But you're talking about the Marina ones.
Yeah. The slimline ones they call them or something.
I've never used them, so
I don't. It's not worth it. You'll pull all your hair out.
Yeah. Don't do it.
I see what you're saying. I've just
so much potential.
Interesting. The Sun one on AliExpress physically looks identical to the Marina one.
Oh, really?
Probably the same one.
So, I mean, they probably potentially come out of the same factory.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know, but from what I can see, they're probably a multiple branded, very cheap, mass-produced one somewhere. I mean, everything's mass-produced, but you know, you can get good stuff and you can get crap stuff. Just what it is.
Yep.
Interestingly,
Sure
Marina was bought out by Fluval, or Fluval bought out Marina, or whatever happened. So it's really interesting that something under that same umbrella brand is so average.
It's probably more just like a budget brand, I guess.
They bought it for a cheap one.
Maybe
have cheap products.
Like the aquarium vacuums, for example, that were Marina, they just got repackaged to Fluval, and like the brush sets, like everything that was Marina, the Marina hang-on back breeder boxes just got rebranded to Fluval. So like, whether they're phasing that out or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's crazy that something that is under the Fluval umbrella is just so rubbish.
They possibly bought the whole brand just for those breeder boxes potentially, because those are brilliant.
They're really good.
And they're also really expensive, so you know.
All good things are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
so we've gone through spongy and air filters and hang on the back filters. Yeah.
Internals.
Yep. Yeah, internals is probably next. So what do you guys think about internal filters?
I hate them.
Fair enough.
I'm not a huge fan, but I do think they do have their place. In a smaller tank, they'd be okay, but I'd be thinking they're still kind of ugly. They're still taking up space in your tank. You're probably almost better doing something air powered that's not going to break on you and it's going to cost you less, and you're going to have one less power cord. But
basically, the main application for them, I think, is like so I sell them quite a lot, but they're good like as an alternative to a sponge filter, in that if you want, like, if you're a beginner and you don't want something like humming away in your living room, and you don't want to spend money to get like a fancy air pump plus a sponge and everything, then just get like a little internal filter. It'll be silent, but it's basically the same thing. The only thing I'd say with them is they are a bit like fiddly sometimes. I guess is like
putting them
particularly
together,
the Apple
pulling them
ones.
apart, and trying to get them to hang on.
Like
the
trying to
suction
maintain
cups on the side of the bloody tank and things like that.
And the suction cups will die eventually, same as any suction cup, and it's that's the thing. But I think particularly for a beginner, because I think they're more simple than a sponge filter in that it's very easy for a beginner. Like, it doesn't even make sense how a sponge filter draws water through for a lot of people. So like, just plug it in and it will push the water around. Is simple and they don't think about it. But yeah, I'm not like, I don't have a massive opinion either way. I personally wouldn't use one, just because they don't have much media, and like they're fiddly and kind of ugly and all that kind of thing. But you know, I do quite like the Eheim ones. Is the only thing I'll say.
I don't think. Oh, and the Eheim ones come with a hang over the tank thing too. Again, if you don't have Euro bracing, they're really good.
They don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore. Oh, they used to. They were awesome. Because you didn't have to worry about the suction cups failing. I used to use them all the time. And my Eheim ones, I think, still go. I've still got them somewhere. They're real old.
They don't do that anymore, unfortunately.
They aren't a bad option either. Like, I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying I think there's better options out there.
Yeah, and I mean, they're good because they're cheap as well.
And they will work.
About the only real option for a smaller tank. Like, if you're just buying a glass box, not the only real option, but like, we're limited on that sort of size. So, like you said, if someone doesn't want a sponge bubbling away and you can't put a hang on back on because of bracing, then that becomes the next option.
Yeah, unless you want to spend on a little canister, but especially for a beginner, that's a lot. Especially for a beginner, like, that's a lot of money and a lot of confusion for something that, like, as long as it makes the tank go, that's kind of the main thing for that sort of situation, and then everything else is the fun part.
Some of the internal filters are the same prices of a small canister, so price-wise, they can be close. But
like what?
I agree. Like the Fluval hang-on backs. The Fluval internals.
Oh, I only realized Fluval did an internal last week or whenever when you mentioned them. I was like, what the hell's this? So
the Eheim
I can't
ones
speak
are
to
a little
those.
bit. Eheim ones aren't cheap either. Like nothing Eheim is cheap, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they're
and
probably,
they're
cheap
probably
enough.
probably a good filter, but they're not. I mean, they're not a cheap filter.
yeah. The thing I don't like about the Eheims is, again, because they've got their spike through the middle, you're set up to continue to buy the replacement media. The sponges last for quite some time, but it doesn't really allow you to modify it in a way you can add extra media to it, which frustrates me a little bit.
From my understanding, I think that spike is because I think you're supposed to leave the center open so it flows through sideways.
Yeah, of course, but that still means you can't change it, and you're
Well,
still
you can still jam any old
have to-
sponge in there, but
Yeah, you can.
you still have to buy
Usually,
the stuff.
I just jam ceramic noodles around the spike and then it still works.
Okay.
So I don't know. Give it a go, but
I
I'm
don't
pretty
think-
sure you can do that and it still
to
does
me,
the job.
replacing media isn't a huge thing because I mean, I've had filters that I've used for 15 years and never replaced any media in them. The ability to add more media is always a good thing, but I don't think the need to replace it is. I mean, some people do like to, I guess, for ease of maintenance, replace their sponges every so often when they get real manky rather than clean them. But I mean, there is no need to do that. You can just wash them out.
The only
And
one
go
I'd
for it.
replace is like the filter wall, because eventually that's going to just disintegrate and
But most
not do
filters don't
anything.
use filter wall
But-
in them. We usually
Yeah,
add that.
but I was going to say, but you want to like your ceramic media and stuff, just leave it. It'll be fine. Again, eventually it'll probably disintegrate, but you'll probably be dead before that happens. So don't worry about it.
Have you used the tank-made internal filters?
I have not, but I have heard good things.
They are really, really good units.
Oh, nice.
For what you pay, they are phenomenally good. And because the way they pull apart with 3 chambers, you can actually fill one up with noodles, fill one up with a sponge or a bit of filter floss. And so you can make it like a little mini canister filter inside your tank.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've sold plenty, had very few returned, like, 1 or 2 every now and then get a little bit noisy. But overall, I think they're one of the better internal filters that we get here. Normal problems with the suction cups do get a bit weak. But I think, they're really good. They're not particularly thirsty when it comes to power. They're one of the better, I think, but they just, because they're tank made, they don't get the love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I might have to check those out.
And the other one, like we're saying, the fluval, suction cups normally fail with internals, but the fluvals have like a cradle that sits on the tank. So you pull it off and then you actually take the unit out. So the suction cups don't get worn on and off all the time, which I think's
Oh, yeah.
quite a
That's the
addition.
same as those Eheim Biopower ones, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good system. I don't know why more people don't use that system.
Yeah,
And
I
it
Also,
just keeps
when the
everything a lot
suction
more
cups
neater.
fail, you just jam behind a rock somewhere and carry on with life. It's not a big deal.
But like
eh?
this is one of the more common things that go wrong with them, and it's fairly easy to fix or put a cradle on it and a hinge on it, and away you go. But I'm not sure why some of the other companies don't do that.
Little life hack for everybody is if you have suction cups that are failing, just put them in boiling water for a couple minutes, and then they'll be back to life. 90% of the time. Sometimes it doesn't work, but boiling water on them, just because they get a bit crusty and old, but they go back to new. So yeah, that's a little. If you listen, that's a little tip for you. Revive some suction cups.
I'm sure you can go on AliExpress or whatever and buy some for like 2 cents each. If you shop around.
For sure.
Like if you really
for sure.
care that much about your suction cups, just go buy 100 off AliExpress for like $5, and then you've got a lifetime supply and just change them when they fuck out.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. But I mean, I haven't looked on AliExpress, but I imagine that's the type of thing you'd find on there. Quite cheap.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so I guess next on the list would be the canister filters. Probably I'm gonna say the most, like when people want like a good filter or like a bougie filter, everyone's gonna go on to the canister filters, I'd say, for the most part. So what do you guys think in terms of like what's the best, what's the worst, things to be aware of, all that kind of thing?
I like the FX5s, the FX series. I guess they don't do 5s anymore. They do 6s and 4s. But I like the FXs and I like the Aquariums. I know that the Aquarium CF series, I don't like the Nautilus as much. The bigger ones, because they the bigger aqua ones, because they seem to leak and stuff. I mean, I've got one here that's going okay, but they don't seem to be as good, the Nautilus ones. But the CF range, like your CF 1200s and stuff, is really good bang for your buck. You know, they've got a lot of room for media. They do have some weaknesses in the taps, which if you turn them the wrong way, which I've done plenty of times, you break them. So don't turn the taps the wrong way, and make sure you have access to some spare ones. So that's my advice for them, because the spares are cheap anyway. But I've had some of them running for probably 15 years that are still sweet, and I haven't done anything to them apart from clean them every couple of years. And they're still going sweet, they're still quiet, they're still pumping lots of water. No dramas.
I'm also a fan of the CFs. I think again they're good bang for buck. They're plastic casing that holds a bunch of filter media, pumps in and out. I think for what you pay for, they're a really good, really reliable, and very seldom is ever a major issue that isn't a tap leaking or something really simple to fix type of thing. Also a fan of the Fluval's FX range when you get into the bigger size aquariums. I think they're phenomenally good as well. Had a lot of people talk about the eHome Classics, and I think I've used one or two, and I've never been here nor there in the sense of.
That's the green bowls, the green circular ones, eh?
Circular ones, yeah.
And they go all right.
Yeah, I've never been here nor there because nothing ever went wrong with them, and they did what they did. So I never kind of had to think about them, if that makes sense. But you know, looking back at the times I've used them, they've done what they needed to do ridiculously well.
The cool thing about
I quite
them,
like the eHome Classics.
The cool thing
that's
about
what we
them
use
is
a lot on the. That's what we use a lot on the, like, service clients, like the bigger tanks, is the eHome ones, because it's like very efficient, very good quality, not going to break, very easy to use if something needs to get done. So,
they're cool because they actually have the outlet on the bottom. They have an inlet on the bottom, don't they?
Yeah,
and
as
the
well.
Top. So that's actually quite a cool idea. I mean, the other ones try and simulate that with a tube through the middle to get the water through the media, but these ones actually physically have the intake, I believe it is, going into the bottom of the filter, and then suck the whole lot through the media.
If it breaks,
it can be broken off. It can be broken off.
Yeah,
and I've definitely broken them off before. But they're a good.
Played around with the Fluval ones as well. Again, I think they're pretty good. They've got a side cartridge to remove your filter foam to clean that out, which is really effective as well. But the
this is your 404s and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the tap bit that you click in to engage everything, they're quite brittle and they snap quite easily. That's a massive downside to them.
Well, I personally hate Fluval canister filters, so
I had about 6 of them running, and they all died on me, so they ended up getting given away. So I gave up on them, and the Aqua ones are the only ones I've really sort of stuck with, and FX5.
Do you hate them because they're too heavy for you to lift?
No, yes, partially.
Pussy like young Cam.
That's one of the reasons. My bloody FX5, that's like a whole morning exercise to try and bloody deal with that stupid thing. And then it's like but then there's nowhere for me to drain it. And then there's just so much foam in there. Like there's so much foam, and
it's too efficient for you.
No, there's too much foam, and it's hard to make biomedia sit in those little holes.
But Aquarium Science has proven that foams are the most effective filtration. So Fluval is giving you what Aquarium Science tells you.
Well, somehow I doubt it. I doubt that's why they do that.
You're not going to get outvoted here. You suck. You just need to go to the gym more and stop being a pussy.
And also the taps. After a while, the taps get so hard to use. They get like so stiff.
The biggest problem with them is those silly little locks that they use to hold the top thing on. The plastic bits of them break and fall apart. That is the biggest problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can just jam washers under there and use them.
The biggest problem with them is that they're expensive from wholesale and retail.
Yeah.
Like no part of that chain is cost effective to anybody.
In the States, they can buy them for about $200 New Zealand retail.
Yeah, but that's because they're crazy.
And they're over $1,000 retail in New Zealand. What are they here? 900, 1,000?
Recommended retail is close to 1,600, but most people sell between 700 and 800.
I don't know how people do. If I probably shouldn't tell people this, but if I price match, Hollywood Fish Farm, then I would lose money. So I don't know what the hell's going on there. But if anyone wants to know why I don't sell any FX6s, I can't afford it, basically. So yeah,
you can't afford
stupid system.
You can't afford for people, you to pay people to take them.
Yeah, exactly. Like straight up, like it's stupid. It's not like a lot, but it's like I lose like $80 or something when you include shipping or all that. It's like, what the hell's the point of this?
Yeah, same reason I don't stock them as well. It's just not.
And what about Eheim Pro filters? I've got one of them. That seems pretty good, pretty solid.
They're pretty bougie. They're like top of the line type of thing.
Yeah, I've got one of them.
They seem pretty cool. I really like them.
They're right.
Yeah, I haven't played with one, unfortunately. I would like to, but I haven't yet.
I don't have one now. I had one ages ago, and it was like ancient, but it was super cool.
I've got a
pretty fancy filter.
I think Eheim is probably one of the better external filters you can buy. Like they're probably better than Flowville, and they're definitely better than Aqua One. I don't know if their price, like the price you pay, is that much makes them that much better. I don't think they're twice as good because they're twice the price, or 3 times as good because they're 3 times the price. But they are a good filter.
The caveat to that is your filters are running 24 hours a day, and these are just going to use round numbers. Aqua One's running 50 watts 24/7. Eheim's running 20 watts 24/7. So eventually that lower power consumption is going to pay off in your power bill over your cost of purchase price. So that's something that needs to be considered with filters, because they do run 24 hours a day, that the general running costs, and when you're making that decision, that eventually you'll get your money back out of a lower running cost of an Eheim over a Aqua One, as an example.
Yeah, for sure.
Off the shelf, you might be paying more, but long run, you're going to get your money back out of it.
I just did the maths, and you'd save approximately 10 cents a day.
Sweet, that's worth it. So over the course of a
lifetime,
that's
actually quite a bit.
Yeah, 70 cents a week. What's that? $2.50 a month. Over the course of a lifetime, you're going to get your money back.
I think it's insignificant.
I think you're wrong.
Well, that's because you're rich.
It's $35 a year, so it's probably going to take. It's kind of like solar. It'll take you longer to pay it off. Take you like 10, 15 years to pay it off, to pay the difference.
How long have you had some of your canister filters running for?
Yeah, but most people don't.
10, 15.
They usually get rid of them, break them. Okay, anyway, I can see your argument, but I think it's a moot point to try and sell someone a really expensive filter.
You get your money back.
The only other canister I think that is worth mentioning would be the Sierra ones.
Oh, right.
What do they call them? The biofill or something like that.
Yeah, biofill.
I quite like them because they're like a little bit more expensive than the Aqua Ones, but you get quite a bit out of them, quite a bit more.
Bioactive.
That's it.
Yeah. So like that one, it's like I did the math the other day, from the CF500 to, I don't know what they call them, the smallest bioactive one. The UV one is like an extra $90 or something, but you get UV, and I think it's a better, more durable tap system and a more durable clamp system and all that. So yeah, I think it's definitely, you pay a bit more, but you get a lot more.
What's the big one?
Two people talking at the same time. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen. What's the big?
Go.
You go, Cam.
Are they all UV?
You can get them without UV, but I always recommend with the UV because it's like the price increase is so negligible, but you get the added benefit, the added function feature.
I know we've had this conversation before. How many people don't turn them on properly and ruin the UV?
I don't know what that means.
So a lot of people will suck on the end of their return pipe to get a canister filter going, which in turn.
Oh, that's not on these ones.
Oh, is that on not those ones?
That's on the big ones because they have this button that you press. That's not right. So that they also do. I can't remember what they're called. They do a big extremes. They're called. And so on those big ones, there's a button to prime it, and if you don't prime it, then water gets into where the flow buttons are and bust those. So yeah, but on those little ones you can do that and nothing happens. It's not the UV, it's the because it's got a more fancy control panel to control the flow and stuff, and it messes up those.
That to me is a fundamental error because people like easy and don't like reading instructions.
I agree.
So that one's a fundamental.
I agree. I think it's a stupid. I think it's a stupid problem to have. But equally, I think pressing a button is a lot easier than trying to get a siphon started. But you have to know.
How many people are going to break their canister before they read the instructions again?
Yeah, I mean that's I think a Sarah problem is like that's a stupid thing to have happen.
So
how is it not?
So a question on the Sarah filters. So I mean I'm looking around and they're about we'll say $400 for an 1100 litre per hour one, and it looks like you can get a CF 1200 for 160. You know,
where the hell can you get it for 160?
Yellowstore.co.nz.
Yeah, not our prices.
But anyway, I don't want to.
I'm talking about my prices because.
So, but anyway, I'm just saying for a consumer, would you say that $280 basically you can buy almost 3 Aqua Ones, CF 1200s for the price of one that flows the same amount of water?
I think personally, yes, because the Sarah that Sarah one is physically a fair bit bigger, so like you can put a lot more media in it, like physically, and you know that will give you increased filtration. Plus, you got the UV and all the much better tap systems and clamp systems and all that. So, personally, I think so, but. If you're wanting just like something that'll do the job, I agree. I think the Aquis is the best option.
I'd sooner buy 2 CF 1200s and have 2 filters and have double the filtration than buy one of them, just based purely on how I've used them and that I know I'll probably get 15 years out of it at least because I have. You know?
But then why don't you buy the more expensive Sarah because they're lower running costs and you're going to get your money back out of it that way? With the UV filter.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I was just trying to check. But
yeah,
the UV filter is an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think it's a draw.
Especially for a display, I think it's really, really useful.
But then you could,
like if it's for something like you, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I'm going to experiment with it at some stage actually. Have a play on.
Well, you can have this one for Kim's tank, and then you can let me know what you think.
I think the UV filter is a massive draw card. Like it is definitely a bonus again, particularly on a display. But you hard.
But I mean, in this case, you are paying $280 extra for that.
Yeah.
For a similar flow filter, so you could buy an external UV and use it when you needed to, for a lot less than $280. It's not all built in. It's not all pretty and stuff. For a display tank, that would definitely be a feature, right? Because you don't want to put more crap in your tank than you need to. So, yeah, it's interesting. I haven't tried the Sarah ones, so you know, if anyone is out there from Sarah, maybe they can hook us up with some merch, you know,
some product testing.
You can get the external ones that hook onto your pipe, so the U-Heim external ones. So if you're worried about
inline ones,
yeah, if you're worried about the aesthetics,
but you have to sell your kidney to buy one of them.
Yeah, they're not cheap, but there is those options as well, which might
they
be
are
less
very
than
cool though.
$280. Yeah,
there's a pond version, isn't there? Isn't Aqua One do a pond version?
Yeah,
Aqua One do a pond one.
Pond one.
Yeah, so that's inline, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, we're getting sidetracked, but yeah, Cam rates the Sarah ones, which is good. I've never used one, and I think based purely on price and what I know of the CF 1200s, I would just buy more of them.
Yeah, I'm team CF.
But I haven't used a Sarah one yet, so we'll have to see. Looks like I might be.
And I've also had
one at some stage.
I've also had bad experiences with the CF ones leaking all the time and not stopping. So maybe I'm just scarred and jaded.
You're probably just one of these people like me that turns the taps the wrong way, and you just need to stop.
No, it was leaking from the seal, and I changed the seals. I even got like new media, but I changed every possible thing, and it just wouldn't stop leaking.
Was it the CF or was it the Nautilus?
It was a CF. I still have it. So in the end, I just salvaged it for parts, and it just sitting in my shed.
And the problem is that I guess with anything, and Aqua One is probably a volume-based company, so you could have just got a dud. And I've had dud filters before too. I've got a Nautilus there that I cannot stop leaking, no matter how many seals I throw at it, and it's just
That was
relegated to
exactly what
parts.
happened with this. Yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly what happened
Yeah,
with this,
yeah.
and then I got frustrated.
And it's a shame because
things
that's not, from what I've found with the, I mean, I've used a lot of CF filters. That's not typical for them.
Yeah,
But it can happen with anything. You know,
yeah, exactly.
you can get a lemon. You can get an absolute lemon that, for whatever reason, there's probably some tiny crack in it, or some tiny bend or bow, or something that's out of line, and it just never will stop leaking.
Ruins everything. Yeah.
The Friday afternoon one.
Yeah. So the only other one that I think is worth talking about quickly would be the sump filter, which I think personally is definitely my favorite. Is like you can't beat it. Basically, if you want like the best of the best, in my opinion, is do a sump. The only kind of problem is you have to sort of teach yourself a little bit of plumbing knowledge, which is stupid. But aside from that, can't beat it. So yeah, no one else want to say anything?
Don't
no.
disagree, but I don't agree. I think anything under sort of 400 litres is a waste of time putting a sump on. I think there's far easier, better options. I think when you're getting over the 400 mark, into the 500s, that kind of thing, I think a sump is definitely a valid option. I don't believe that they are the best. I think they've got their ups and their downs, like every other sort of filtration. I love the fact you can hide everything away, and as you're just looking at what's in the tank, I think that's a massive tick. Evaporation, noise, potential flooding, all that kind of stuff is definitely a Debbie Downer for me. I'm kind of hit and miss. I do like them. I don't think they're quite as amazing as what you say they are, or what you think they are.
I disagree.
I think you're wrong.
I disagree with Hillbilly Cam. I think they're the best as well. I do agree with your considerations and the fact that they can be noisy. They can, but all the stuff you talk about is just poor design, right?
Yeah, it can be.
The biggest thing about them is the effort required to get one and get it running right. Like that's the problem with them. You've got to drill
I'm going to say they're
tanks,
probably not the best beginner one.
Unless you buy a tank already with one fitted that's working properly. I'd never had a sump until I bought this big tank in my lounge that's got one built in. And now I'm like, why did I never put a sump on anything? Because this is amazing. It's got the tank is clear. The fish are healthier, happier. It's brilliant. There's no heaters in the tank. It's awesome. I just love it. And I managed to, the overflow is a little bit noisy by poor design, which I've got to modify. And I had to change the pump to a DC one, so I got rid of the hum. But apart from that, it's brilliant. It's like perfect.
You've had no issues with it yet, though, have you?
No. And I can't see any issues that I would have with it.
I've had intakes clog up, overflow everything. I've had tank sumps blow out, so it's pissed water everywhere. I've had
those kind of things can happen with any filter.
But I guess that is poor design as well, right?
But you're scarred by the CF 1200 that never stopped leaking, and so I'm equally scarred. I've got massive water stains all over my carpet in 3 different places where I've had 3 different sumps that have gone wrong. 3 completely different tanks.
I've also had a sump split a seam and bloody flood everything, but for that it's worth it from what you get out of it. But for what you get out of a canister, I'm not convinced. I'm still not a fan.
We do. I mean, we're pretty much, who keeps fish tank is pretty much a badass because they stick in a big vessel of water in their lounge anyway. Like the tank it's unlikely, but we do run a risk, and if you put a sump in there or you put an external filter in there, you are increasing your risk.
Yeah.
You've got another thing in there that can leak and cause floods. So I think in terms of leak risk, I'd say a sump's probably less than an external filter from what I've seen.
I'd say definitely.
You disturb the seals every time you open it.
But how often do you open your seals?
Well,
You only
some
clean
people
it-
do. Some people do quite often. I don't,
Yeah, you do
but
it a
that's a
couple of
different
years.
discussion, right? But I do know as soon as you stuff with them, you increase the risk of breaking that seal, and then you're stuffed. But
If you don't
again,
keep up with
unlikely, and
maintenance,
they're designed to be opened and closed, so it should be okay. But
if you don't keep up with maintenance, they drop down via evaporation, can make horrible noises, heaters
put a
can
little-
crack. There's a few. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're the be all. I don't think they're the be all and end all. It's not that I don't like them. I just don't think they are quite as amazing as what you believe they are.
Well,
I think with
you're
good
wrong,
design,
so-
I think with good design and some mitigation in place, they definitely are the best. But you've
I
got to
don't-
have that. You've got to go through those processes, and you've got to have provision for block pumps. You've got to have provision for block overflows. You've got to have that stuff set up. You've got to have a decent overflow so it's not noisy.
Yeah.
Proper
I
design.
love the fact that you can load up with anything you want. You can design it whatever you want. If you want to run like mechanical one, massive K1, and another one, a whole bunch of pot scrubbies, like whatever you like. I think that is phenomenal. You're not limited in sizes.
And you can use it as a referred. What do you call it?
Yep.
Grow plants in it.
Refugium.
Adding water
spare
volume
tank.
to make it more
A spare
stable,
tank
like
for naughty fish.
Yep, but there's heaps of positives. I just don't think they are as sparkly as what you think or you perceive.
It's okay to be wrong.
I know you're finally accepting it. Well done, congratulations.
I mean,
That's the first
the reality is that you've only just stopped putting candles underneath your tanks to heat them down in Nelson. So, I mean, how much weight do we put on what you say about, you know what I mean? You've only just discovered power and internet. So let's, we have to apply a little bit of a scaling factor here about who lives in civilization and uses cars and things like that versus who doesn't.
Before you get on too much of a rant against me, I've just realised that we haven't really explained what a sump is. And I think one of the biggest things a lot of people go through is what is a sump? How does it work? And I think that's a massive contributor to why people don't use them or don't know what they are. At least people that are coming into my shop talking about them, I've seen my tanks with a sump and go, oh, what's that? What does it do? Sort of thing. So maybe one of you want to just go through and just discuss that before we bore everybody to death.
So,
got
basically, I'll give it a go and then you tell me how wrong I am. But basically, it's a second tank that you generally put below, but not necessarily below your display tank. And then, so the water would go into it usually via a drain. Like you go through the glass, put a hole in the glass and put a drain in it that drains the water down to the sump tank. And then you put all the media and all your filtration materials into that sump. And then it's set up usually with what they call baffles, which is like just things to direct the flow so it goes through the media. So you do all that, and then you can put like your heaters or like a auto top off or like whatever sort of fancy equipment you want to put in there. And then it will go back to a pump. And then that pump will pump it back to the main tank. And then as that main tank gets water pumped in, it drains out and it just goes in a circle like that. So yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully I haven't missed anything important.
Basically, it's just a
sump sitting right here. Should I get it and put it in front of the camera? Or is that too much effort?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said I've got an empty sump sitting right there. Should I pick it up and put it in front of the camera, or is that too much effort?
It's probably fine. Most people, I think, are listening rather than watching.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't have. It also doesn't have to be a tank. It can be any container or vessel that's watertight.
Something to hold water.
Anything, and you just pump the water into your tank, and it overflows out. That's basically it, and it flows through all the media as it's draining back down. It's just like
and basically, if it's not set up incorrectly, it's not going to overflow and flood. That's the main thing. Is like people always scared. Like if there's a power cut, everything's going to just keep draining and no water's going to go back in. But basically, when they're set up correctly, the water will stop draining because like you put the drain like right near the top of the water. Like there's specific ways to figure it out so that you don't make sure it doesn't overflow, but very basically it'll drain out like a little bit extra but not enough to overflow. onto the floor or anything.
When the power turns off, it just all drains out of the main tank and just goes into the sump. And as long as you've got your water levels set up right, it just fills up the sump. And then when the power comes back,
because like you'll still want to be taking out the you'll want to be turning off the power when you're doing a water change or something like that. So if it's all set up right, then you're sweet.
Also, don't forget the return has to be equated into when you're talking about the drain as well, because water comes out and return back in. Funny story about not turning off the power when doing a water change on a sump. I once didn't turn off the power of my heaters when I was doing a water change on the sump. I was cleaning out the sump, did a pretty big one. In the process, the heating element split between here and there. So there was exposed water. Filled everything back up, turned the pumps on, put my hand in the water and shot myself halfway across the room. That was a real fun time. Yeah. My flatmate was standing there laughing at me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that was cool. Oh, what's going on?" So I put my hand in it again. So I gave myself 2 shots in the space of about 2 minutes. And I was petrified for ages. Put my hand in the tank, and I said, "Mate, give this a go. Give this a go. It's great." They just laughed at me. Said, "I'm not doing that." Then I realised that I'd actually cracked. I seen it. If I hadn't seen it, I probably would have gone 3 in a row as well. So that was a fun time.
So to be honest, that story explains a lot.
Some caveman shit. There's some caveman shit right there.
It literally pushed me across the room.
You remind me of that cop that stood on my kitchen called Meatex. You know,
heck of a rush. But, I was really, really dubious about putting my hand in the sump for a long time after that.
Well, at least you learned. I mean,
to the point now, anytime I put a heater in any tank now, I always just give it a week test just in case, every single time.
Usually when my heaters are cracked, the circuit protection for the house is blown, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't have that in my house.
They haven't discovered that down his way yet.
Yeah, yes, if they're still running around in a wheel to provide the power to the house.
I've still got a circuit board that flicks off if I run the jug and my washing machine at the same time. Oh, sorry, jug, washing machine, and microwave. If all 3 of those go at the same time, my power goes off.
It's because they're all on the same circuit. Yeah.
Get Sparky Ryan down to fix it for you.
Nah.
He doesn't have any hair to lose or go frizzy if it goes wrong.
I've forgotten how to ride horses, so I wouldn't be able to get around down there.
Comedy. All right, so we've been going for long enough.
We've covered air filters, we've covered hang on the back filters, we've covered canisters, we've covered sumps, we've covered ambic mattins a little bit, internals. I mean, there's bound to be more stuff that some purists would say. I mean, there is the overhead trickle filters, which are very similar to a sump. The water's pumped up into them and then drains back down into the tank. So it's very similar sort of principle. A lot of your all-in-one tanks will have one of them in the top of them. The biggest problem with them is just making sure the media is in the right places and done right so it doesn't fill up and overflow. Because often they can leak a little bit if you mess with stuff too much.
And they're generally set up for make people fail long term, in my mind.
Oh, yeah, they're not the best filter system. I don't think. Yes, but
cartridge in and out is just set up for people to fail and spend too much money.
Yeah, well, I've always ditched them, but you do need to be careful with them, just because I've seen a lot of them leak. Not majorly, but just drop down the back of a tank, and people think their tank's cracked, and it's not.
It's enough to cause a problem, at least.
Yeah, like a sump.
Anyway,
but you love them too much.
Anyway, I think looks like Cooler Cam. What are you doing, Cooler Cam? You look distracted in our video. You look like
I'm so tired.
You look like you want to. Normally, you need to go and take care of some admin at this sort of stage of the call.
I just need to go to bed.
You usually go in the chat and say, "I need to go."
Nah. Well, I need to go to bed.
No, you need to get up and go run a fish store. You need to go run a fish store. Sell some fish.
Yeah, I do. I forgot about that. All right, come on, let's go. We've been on for ages.
Cool. All right. Well,
thank you very much.
You'll know what we've covered today. Cam needs to go have a sleep and take care of some admin. So we'll leave it at this. He's also been making some great inroads on that merch that we've been talking about. Sales of that are through the roof. You can get a t-shirt with my face on it, and I'm gonna love to see that in the supermarket.
Who wouldn't want that?
Who wouldn't want that? It's like Superman all over again. I've got a Superman top on for all those listening on Spotify. But anyway, we'll see you next week for another undisclosed topic. So it will be a mystery.
All right. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Big Dog.
much. See you later.